Continuing now with our lead story on the decision by the Attorney General Eric Holder to treat jihadist Ahmed Ghailani like a common criminal. Back in 2009, Mr. Holder thought civilian courts would work out just fine.
What I told the prosecutors and what I will tell you in what I spoke to them about is that failure is not an option. Failure is not an option. These are cases that have to be won. I don't expect that we will have a contrary result.
But the question now is, will he reconsider that statement after the Ghailani verdict? Joining us from Dallas, UC Berkeley law professor John Yoo, who worked for the Justice Department during the Bush administration. Professor Yoo, it's great to see you. You heard my discussion with the former ambassador to the United Nations, Nancy Soderberg, and the criminal defense attorney. First, to this issue that, well, look, you know, all these guys are serving time and long sentences, and he could very well be in jail for life, so the system works. So let's do it in the civilian court system. How do you answer that?
Well, first of all, let's just be conscious that the Attorney General and the Justice Department are really lucky that they even got one conviction out of the 200-some counts. And so they just got lucky. That doesn't tell us anything about whether these courts are going to be useful for the harder cases that are coming down the line, like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the actual mastermind of the 9/11 attacks. But whether they convict people or not in the end is not the most important issue. The most important issue is how is this going to help us take the fight to al-Qaeda and better win the war we're in right now and protect the nation's security. I'm afraid that the Attorney General and President Obama want to take us back to the failed policies of September 10th, 2001, using law enforcement and using the civilian justice system we saw is not going to deter terrorists. It's only good after the terrorist attacks occur, as in this case, and we find them after the fact. The system we want is one that's going to help us find and catch them and stop the attacks before they happen. And I'm afraid the civilian justice system can't do that because it's going to require revelation of lots of secrets and lots of operational details that can hurt us in the war right now.
Professor Yoo, I think what's going on here is this kind of stuff that you and I saw in law school, right? Like all these academic debates where all these liberals are like, well, we've got to show the world we're better than that. And I think they prefer the civilian trials, right? Because it's more likely that the terrorists will be able to game the system and maybe expose what they think is some vulnerability in the American system. And I know that sounds really harsh, but if your argument is that the civilian trials are just as effective and put people away for as long, then why the big opposition to the military trials? To me, it doesn't really make much sense.
It is really hard to see what the upside here is to having civilian trials. We have military commissions. They've been used for hundreds of years to try members of the enemy for war crimes. Congress has supported them and blessed them. Our greatest presidents have used them during war. So why turn to the civilian justice system? I worry that it's because President Obama's administration want to win a popularity contest with the rest of the world. They want us to be liked around the world, and they seem to think whether we use our own civilian justice system to give members of the enemy the same rights that our own citizens get, it's not going to help us with the hard problems of terrorism, North Korea, or Iran. But I think they have this weird view about this.
This idea that we have to be loved by the world. We need to be secure. First and foremost, we need to be secure as a nation. We can't take any risks. We can't take it, oh, well, at least it's one count. That's not justice done. Not for those 12 Americans whose bodies were pulled out of that rubble, charred, and their last breaths gasping in the smoke of those horrific bombings. I want to put up and this is just some of the imagery, which is disturbing. I want to put up this full screen. Judge Lewis addressed the jury after their verdict was handed down, and this is what he said. You've demonstrated that American justice can be delivered calmly, deliberately, and fairly by ordinary people, people who are not beholden to any government, including this one. Professor Yoo, what do you make of that statement that he made? A little reading between the lines, a little editorializing, by the way, a Clinton appointee to the federal bench.
Yeah, I'm afraid that the Obama administration, Eric Holder, and this judge want to use civilian trials as some kind of way to show opposition to the last administration or to show how they're really good people that other countries ought to cooperate with. It just doesn't work. As you said, the first thing we should be worried about is winning the war in Afghanistan, winning the war in Iraq, and winning the war against al-Qaeda, if we have to use law enforcement methods and civilian trials, do we want our soldiers running around collecting evidence in the field and taking witness statements? It's not compatible with really taking the fight to the enemy.
Now, you don't want them worrying about whether this evidence is going to be admissible in court. I mean, you just can't conduct a war against the enemy that way. Professor Yu, as always, thanks so much.